Imagine standing at the edge of a deep, dark forest, the unknown stretching out before you. The shadows whisper of fear, judgment, and the overwhelming sense that you must face it all alone. But what if I told you that stepping into that forest, embracing your vulnerability and authenticity, could lead you to a place of profound healing? It's no secret that seeking help can feel daunting. The fear of being judged, misunderstood, or appearing weak can be paralyzing. But the truth is, our greatest strength lies not in our ability to go it alone, but in our capacity to be open, to be authentic, and to be vulnerable. Research has shown that our reluctance to seek help can be rooted in deep-seated genetic, epigenetic, and developmental factors. For some, it's the result of generational trauma, an inherited legacy of silence and self-reliance. For others, it's shaped by social or environmental influences, like growing up in a chaotic home where emotions were suppressed, or in a culture that glorifies independence at all costs. But why is this glorification of independence so problematic? Psychotherapeutically and psychologically, the idea that we must always be strong, always be independent, creates an internal pressure that can be both damaging and isolating. It feeds the belief that asking for help is a sign of weakness or failure, rather than a natural and necessary part of being human. This mindset can lead to emotional suppression, anxiety, depression, and a disconnection from our true selves. It also hinders our ability to form deep, meaningful relationships because we become conditioned to hide our vulnerabilities rather than share them. In reality, our interconnectedness, our ability to rely on and support one another, is what fosters resilience and emotional health. But the truth is, vulnerability is the birthplace of connection, healing, and growth. When we allow ourselves to be open, we invite others in. We create space for true healing to occur, not just on the surface, but deep within our minds, bodies, and spirits. Consider the story of someone who, after years of struggling in silence, finally allowed themselves to reach out for help. The walls they built to protect themselves slowly began to crumble, revealing a more authentic self. This process, though painful at times, led to a transformation that not only improved their mental and emotional well-being, but also deepened their relationships with loved ones. Research has documented how this act of vulnerability can significantly improve quality of life. But how exactly does this happen? When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open up to experiences and connections that are vital for our well-being. We begin to break down the barriers of shame, guilt, and isolation that keep us stuck in patterns of self-criticism and fear. Vulnerability invites compassion, both from others and towards ourselves. It allows us to see ourselves not as flawed or broken, but as whole and worthy of love and belonging. This shift in perspective can lead to greater self-acceptance, emotional freedom, and an overall sense of inner peace. By embracing vulnerability, we begin to live more authentically, aligning our actions and relationships with our true selves, which in turn enriches our lives and the lives of those around us. But what does this journey of vulnerability look like in everyday life? It might mean having an honest conversation with a friend about how you're really feeling. It could be joining a support group where you can share your experiences with others who understand. Or it might simply be acknowledging to yourself that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. For someone struggling with mental health issues, vulnerability might look like admitting to a trusted friend or family member that you're not okay, that you need support. It could be sharing your story with others who have walked a similar path, breaking the silence that keeps you in isolation. If you're dealing with substance use disorder, SUD, vulnerability might mean reaching out for help, admitting that you're struggling and allowing others to support you in your journey to recovery. It could also mean facing the underlying emotional pain that led to the addiction in the first place. For someone experiencing emotional distress, vulnerability might involve being honest with yourself about what you're feeling and why, rather than pushing those emotions away. It could mean seeking out a safe space where you can express your feelings without fear of judgment. The ongoing ramifications of embracing vulnerability are profound. It can lead to greater emotional resilience, stronger relationships, and a more balanced, peaceful life. It teaches us that being vulnerable is not a sign of weakness, but a courageous act of self-care and self-love. And if you're wondering how to start, know that vulnerability doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can begin with a small step, like journaling your thoughts, confiding in someone you trust, or simply allowing yourself to feel your emotions without judgment. In a world that often tells us to hide our true selves, remember this: there is no shame in seeking help. There is strength in admitting when we need support. And there is healing in being open, authentic, and vulnerable. So, if you've been struggling, know that you don't have to do it alone. Start small, but start today. And if you find that trying on your own isn't enough, you might want to consider exploring professional help. As Brené Brown beautifully puts it, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. So, step into that forest not with fear, but with the knowledge that on the other side lies the healing you've been searching for.